Hi, Christina. How are you?
Hi, doing good. Thank you for having me on today.
We're happy to have you on FAANGPath. You're an amazing Googler. We've read through your LinkedIn profile, and you've been working at Google so much. So we hope that lots of people who are watching this can learn a lot from you.
I hope so. We'll see.
So can you introduce a little bit about yourself and your role at Google?
Yeah, of course. So I have been working at Google for the last 3.5 years as a data specialist, pretty much helping some of our largest advertising clients implement advanced data projects. But actually, this last week I changed roles. So I've moved within Google. Now I'm working as an analytical lead at Waze, the navigation app. So I'll get to working in a completely new industry for me, mobility and navigation, and I'll get to work with data around mobility, which I find super interesting. But as well, all of this working at Waze now and the last years at Google, it's all been out of Madrid, Spain. I've been working from Madrid in our offices here, but I'm originally from the US. I've been living abroad now since 2012. That's a whole story, everything I've done in Spain since 2012, but I am originally from the US and then I made this move abroad.
So, Christina, did you move just for work, or did you want to move to Spain, and that is why you found work there?
Yeah, I ended up finding work here, but I didn't have anything planned. My journey was very not normal for sure. It was very abnormal. I came to Spain originally back in 2012 after I finished my bachelor's degree. And I came with the intention of staying just 1 year, and then I never left. And now it's been 9 years. And originally I came with the idea to learn Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish at the time. To live in another country, to travel the world. And then 1 year became two, became three, and then I ended up getting my master's here and developing my whole career abroad.
Okay, so that's interesting. Must have been a roller coaster to figure out your own life in a new city, in a new country, and especially in countries where you didn't know Spanish, like you said.
Yeah, it was, and that was the most difficult part. Besides the typical culture shock, was learning Spanish. I needed to learn Spanish, obviously, to get a good job here, and I did end up doing that. But it was definitely a tough journey to get there.
Definitely. And so I was going over your LinkedIn profile to know a little more about you. And I saw that you're doing this book a week challenge. Tell us a little about it. What are you doing there? And which
Yeah,
book are you reading this week?
yeah, I host the Book a Week Challenge on LinkedIn. I've been doing it for a few years now. And it originally started more as like a personal goal that I wanted to push myself to read more. Ended up wanting to read a book a week. That was my goal. And then I ended up doing it publicly as well and making it like a community challenge with the idea to encourage others to pick up books and read more and just foster this continuous learning mindset. Um, I personally have always loved books since I was younger, since I was a kid. But I remember in like college, I didn't read as much as I should, kind of got knocked off track. And then I found my love for reading again after college. But I also think one of the big reasons that I do it personally, and I also encourage it to others, is to have a chance to disconnect from screens because we are constantly on our computers, on our phones, on tablets. And I only read paperback books. I only read physical books. I do not read ebooks. I don't do audiobooks because I use that as a time that I'm not going to be on a screen. And it helps me a lot personally to disconnect, and I would encourage others to try it as well.
Definitely. I agree. A lot of us, and especially during COVID times, we have increased our screen time so much that we do need a reason to disconnect, definitely. So, obviously, Google, what do you think, like, just to get started? Everybody dreams to work at Google. I believe at least all the ones who are coming into the technical field, that has become like the dream company for everyone. So why do you think everyone has that? What is that little thing that you see there is a difference between the other companies that you worked with or any other experiences that you might have had versus something that is so inspiring about Google?
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest difference that I have seen from Google and then prior employment, for me, it would be the people. And for some reason, Google just attracts the right talent. And for me, the people is what makes the company so special. And I guess as well, it kind of portrays. I guess it portrays itself outward, the people, the teams. But I just know that personally, working there, the people that I'm constantly interacting with, their ideas, their self motivation, their determination, and I'm always surrounded by very clever people, and very proactive. You don't have to ask them to do something; they're always willing to help. So for me, that's the biggest difference I've seen, is just this black and white, the change in the type of people that surround me. And yeah, I would say that they're proactive and they're always willing to help. And it makes it a special place to work for sure.
That's interesting. And what do you think? Did you also aspire to go to Google, or is it something that just, your graph took you there?
I definitely aspired to get to Google. I was focused very much on the big tech, which is typical. But Google is special just because I'm working in the data science space. And Google for me was like a dream. I knew that Google would have tons of data. It's a company that's always ahead of the curve, especially in data science. So it was definitely a goal for me at some point to get the chance to work in Google.
Right. And what would you say, how easy or difficult was it to actually get into Google? Like that first step.
It's difficult. It's definitely difficult. And it's something that as well, you need persistence. You're usually not going to get in the first time. You're not going to get in the second time. So you have to keep your head up and persist. That was my case for sure. And I've seen it happen to others, that you just keep trying and you need to find that perfect fit before you're going to get into the company.
Right. Also, like you said, that you see that black and white shift between people and how things were at Google. What do you think is that big graph change versus what your roles or opportunities or everything, your career graph looked like initially versus what it looks like at Google now?
My career graph. I mean, my career graph, my whole trajectory has been very unpredictable because of my journey coming to Spain. And originally I wanted to go back and do my master's in the US. I ended up staying in Spain to do my master's. I ended up developing my career here in Spain. It's not something that I expected, and it's definitely not the typical path. Spain is not this huge world of tech. That would be more in the US. But for sure, my journey, I'm trying to think how to put it, but at least before Google, I was working in Nielsen, the American market research company. And there I definitely had a ton of opportunity. I also loved the company. I had a great time. I had definitely a career plan to move up within the company. And then I moved to Google. With Google, it's completely different. I definitely have. I mean, I couldn't be happier where I am. I'm very happy with my position, with my opportunities, and as well, Google is such a big company that it opens you up to a lot of opportunities if you want to change teams, if you want to try something different. Especially a company such as Google, because, like I said, I moved to Waze. So I moved to something completely different within the company, and you can't always do that in other companies. So I've got so many other companies. If I decided I wanted to work in health, I could go work for a Google Health app. Or if I wanted to go work for YouTube, I could maybe make that move. So it's something very unique that you have these opportunities to move horizontally within the company and change around. And it just gives you chances to be exposed to other, in my case, all sorts of data and other sorts of industries to get involved with.
Right. And through all these, roller coasters that you've been through, what would be that one career advice that you would give yourself back then before you joined Google, or all the job seekers who are ready to get into Google or want to get into Google?
I wouldn't, for my advice, I try not to regret. I'm not a person with much regret. I think that everything happens for a reason. And even when something bad happens to you, I think of it like, a door is being shut, but it means that another is going to open. So I never have regrets for myself. But for others, a piece of advice I would say is definitely do not be afraid to make a change, especially early on in your career or your studies. So it's very important that you find something that you enjoy, that you're going to be okay working in for 20, 30 years possibly, but just something that you're passionate about and you enjoy it, because it's going to make you happier, but it's also you're going to succeed more at it if you enjoy it. Now, I'm saying this because I originally started my bachelor's studies in engineering and civil engineering. I thought I wanted to do that, but after about a year, I realized it wasn't for me. I wasn't happy, and I made a change in my degree. And I did an interdisciplinary degree with a focus on statistics, and this is what helped me get into that analytics path. And I realized I loved it immediately once I changed studies. Super happy. But I would say that to everyone, that if you're not happy where you are, especially early on in your career and your studies, this is the moment to make a change and find something else that's going to make you happy.
Right. I get that. I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about. What the usual idea has become is to get into Google and not realize that you have to get into a company for your ambition, not because it's that company. So I think I completely understand what you mean, right? And what did you think? How did you get into Google? Like, what was your secret recipe?
Mine was, again, part of the strange journey that I took. I was contacted on LinkedIn, and this is not normal at all. But I was contacted by a team that was hiring in Madrid at the time. And they knew me because I'm very, very active on LinkedIn and I have like a voice in the analytics community. So people automatically associate me to analytics and data science. Well, they had a position opening up in Madrid, and they thought it might fit my profile. So they reached out to me and they said that they wanted to have a coffee and tell me about a role that they thought might fit. So I met with them to discuss the role, and it was a really good fit. And I entered the process, and I did not get the job. So I did the whole interview process, and I did not get the job because they found someone who was a better fit at the time. But I stayed in contact with them, because I was very happy with them, with the process, but I just wasn't the right one at the end, which happens, of course. So I stayed in contact with them, and they ended up having another similar position open, and they told me about it as soon as it opened. And I went into that process again, interviewed for it, and I did not get it. So the second time, again, I wasn't the best fit at the time, but that's fine. I stayed in contact with them, continued showing my interest. And the third time they had a role open, I interviewed for it and I got it this time. And that was why earlier when I mentioned about the persistence, that it's very important and you shouldn't get down, whether it's Google or Facebook or Amazon, whatever company it is that you're trying to get into. Do not be discouraged if you don't get in the first time or the second time. Just keep trying, because you never know when it's going to be your opportunity or when you're going to be the perfect fit. It really, a lot of it does depend on you and your education and your experience, but it also depends a little bit on luck. Who else is in that process next to you? Because they're going to be comparing you to these others, and they're going to select the best at the end. So maybe the first time you're not the best, but the second, the third, the fourth, maybe that's your chance.
Right, right. So that is something that is super cool because every time he kept saying I interviewed, I just thought, okay, this is when she got in. So by the third time, I was like, is there another level that she had to go through? So this is really cute to hear. Very inspiring, to be honest, because I think, people do have that morale going lower when you don't get through maybe after the first round or maybe after the second round. So, like you said, persistence is really important. But your journey kind of shows that you had to go through all these three rounds of, I mean, three levels or three ways of doing it, and then you finally got in. And then now you're here talking about being a Googler. So definitely has to be persistence as a key.
Yes, yes. And also staying in touch with them. So
Hmm.
although I was rejected, I still thanked, I contacted everyone in the process. I thanked them for their time. I said that I was still very interested and that they could keep, my profile in the pipeline in case they had another position in the future. So even if you get rejected, you can reach out. One thing you can do is ask for feedback. That definitely helps. So ask for feedback. What could you have done better? What would they recommend for the next time? And then as well, just show your interest, thank them, and then show your interest that next time you would, if they have another fitting position, that you would love to be contacted about that.
Right. So, is that what you think is the best way to go about it for someone who's looking at jobs, or, like you said, LinkedIn was your secret recipe. So, is that how you do it? Just network and keep going?
Absolutely, it helps, but not everyone's going to get in this way, and I don't think it's a traditional way to get in at all. But I can't stress enough the importance of networking. It's going to, even if it doesn't directly help you like it did in my case, it might indirectly help you. So definitely use your LinkedIn network and be very active and make a voice for yourself within your field.
So, would you tell us like maybe two or three cooking tips or recipes of what would be the best way to structure your LinkedIn, help yourself grow so that you're actually highlighted? Like you said, you were a big part of the analytics community, so people associated you with that. So, how people can structure themselves or have themselves be associated with the kind of skill that they want to, so that, maybe something so untraditional can happen with them as well.
I would say the first and the most obvious thing is just to complete your LinkedIn profile, make it very full. I mean, make sure you have a picture, make sure you have that intro paragraph and work on it, make it unique. And as well, make sure you fill out all of your experience, your education, put good, nice details on every point. So work on your profile, but once that's done, that's very, very little bit of what you need to do to be able to make a voice on LinkedIn. That's just the very first step. Once that's done, then I would say now you're ready to start being active on LinkedIn. So that means constantly, daily, I would say, daily sharing news, interesting articles, competitions, whatever it may be about your field, as well as sharing your own projects or your own work if you can. If you're doing anything that's public, maybe you're participating in a Kaggle competition, whatever it may be, post about your journey on LinkedIn, share it with everyone. But anything that you can, especially that relates to your field, so that people start to make that association. Like in my case, analytics and data science, I'm constantly sharing articles on data science. I'm sharing my own, classes that I give, speeches that I give. And then on top of that, I do the book a week challenge. That's like a side, an extra thing. And I like when others do something like that as well. So this is trying to find an extra passion, something outside of your work that just shows that you're human, that you have hobbies. And yours might be that you go skiing, okay, and you're learning to become an expert skier. Then share that journey on LinkedIn and encourage others to do something similar. But find some other extra habit or skill that you can develop, and you can share about that as well. And it's kind of like an extra bonus on your LinkedIn. So that's what I would say. Doing those, working on your profile, being constantly, consistently active on LinkedIn, and then maybe as well trying to find some kind of extra activity that you can make a part of your LinkedIn too.
Right. So all these things will, push you to become so active that people might associate you with that skill that you want. And then
Exactly.
eventually maybe, you could be lucky enough.
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
if not, I think LinkedIn will definitely help you create that network that even if recruiters are not exactly calling you up, maybe you could reach out to them, say, okay, here, this is what I'm applying to. Maybe you could give me a little tips about how to go over the interview process. So I think that's where LinkedIn has become a very good opportunity for us to know what we're going forward into, what we're looking at.
It does, it does. And then I forgot to mention before as well, when you're active on LinkedIn, it also means that you're not only posting yourself, but you need to be, active in others' posts, in others' events online. And that gives you a chance usually to interact with others. So I've made a lot of connections and they end up being these virtual friends from LinkedIn. And why are we virtual friends? Because we are constantly communicated, maybe at the beginning by posts and then later by messages. But you're opening these doors to connect with others. And maybe, like you said, it could be a recruiter, or maybe it's someone that works at a company that you want to work at. Once you make that connection, later, if you ask for advice, they're going to be a lot more open to helping you rather than just some random person. If they remember you because, oh, this person is always writing on my posts and sharing good ideas about my project, then they're going to be very open to helping you. Whereas if it's some random person I've never heard of in my life, I'm not going to prioritize helping that person over someone else. So
Definitely, definitely. I completely agree with you because I have myself, started, not really started, but I think through my journey while I was studying, I realized that, okay, this is something very important. I realized the importance of networking. And that is when I realized, okay, LinkedIn can be used as a very, very strong networking platform. And this is where you can definitely, if not get recruited through LinkedIn, even though that's also very common these days, like in your case, or we've heard a lot of other stories, but definitely interacting, getting to know about how other people are working, what you could learn from them. So I think definitely LinkedIn has become a great source of information. So coming back to your journey at Google, what do you think, if you have some specific resources, or you would say some specific way of preparing to get how to get into Google, because it is difficult. So how to get into it? What resources can be utilized?
first, use your network. That's the most important resource, I think. Reaching out to anyone you may know that currently or in the past worked at that company that you want to work at, whether it be Google or whichever. Reaching out to them and asking them for personal advice is one of the first things you can do. And especially, so a lot of times it depends on what role and what team you are applying to. The closer that person is to that role in that team, of course, they'll be able to help you a bit better. But definitely leverage off of your network. The second thing is preparation. So you have to study. You have to study a lot. I definitely did. And in order to do that, I didn't have a secret sauce. I was just searching on Google and on YouTube and trying to find past interview questions that I think would be similar to something they would ask me. So if you're interviewing for, I don't know, let's say a software engineer, then if you search for software engineer interview questions at Google, you're going to find tons online that you can practice with. So that's what I did. I looked for like analysts, data science, interview questions at Google. I looked at them on Google, on YouTube, went through all of them, made my own list, and then I started practicing them. I started forming my own answers and then practicing them. And I went through them over and over and over. And especially for me, it was very important practice because my interviews were in Spanish, not English. So on top of it being difficult to begin with, it was also in a non-native language for me. So I had to practice double. But I think that's key, definitely, is practice, practice. There's no secret sauce, but spending a lot of hours researching and then working very well to articulate your answers. That doesn't mean, though, coming up with a script and then later going to the interview and reading out a script answer that you memorized. It's just something that you can use to practice, but then the day of the interview, you're not going to follow that script. You're just going to have these ideas and then you let it flow from there. So you're natural.
Right, definitely. And like you said, you prepared a lot of questions and you tried going over them. But what would be a do or a don't for interviews in general and especially at Google? Because obviously you've read through them thrice.
Yeah, so let's say to start with the do's. Do's, of course, go natural, go with a smile. Very important to go with confidence. Do not show up nervous. Just be confident. The worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no, and you might have another chance in the future, but it's not the end of the world. And as well, another do is do um, do be honest when you don't know the answer to something. So do not try to make up an answer on the spot. You're going to dig yourself a hole. Be honest. If you don't know the answer to something, tell them. One thing that you can do, especially in Google interviews, is ask questions or ask for clarification, or ask even for clues, for tips. But definitely do not try to make up an answer. So that goes into the do not part. That goes more into the do not part as well. So do not make up answers. Do be honest about it. And then I'm trying to think of more like do nots. Do not. So do not. Trying to think of others. Do not. I would guess do not be silent after the interviews. So right after an interview, it's very common that you just forget about it and you're just waiting for the answer. But you don't necessarily need to be, the other person doesn't need to be the first one to reach out. You should reach out afterwards, write them a thank you email. Thank you for your time. It was great to meet you. It was really interesting learning about your role at Google. Do something personalized like that, just to leave on a good note, I would say.
And I think, like you're saying this, if you ask that one question that you can personalize later in the email, that will also leave a mind mapped. Okay, this was this person who did this. I think that kind of makes it more strong on your part during the interview. And then eventually, once obviously, like you said, reaching out, being the first one would help a lot. If not in a positive way, but obviously to get more feedback to learn more, definitely.
Yeah, I've definitely done it in the past where I always ask a little bit about them. And then in the follow-up email, I try to remember what were they telling me. And then I make this connection and it shows as well that you were listening.
Right, definitely. And once we get to the interviews, we definitely have to have a resume. So, what do you think would be a few tips for resumes of what maybe Googlers are looking for, recruiters at Google are looking for, or in general, any tips that you have for resumes?
Yeah, I can't speak on behalf of a recruiter. I can say from my own
Definitely.
personal opinion that one of the most important things is when you're applying for a job, you read the job description very well. You take out keywords and you make
Correct.
sure that in your own resume it's reflecting something similar to that. So it's definitely important that for every role, every job that you apply to, you adjust your CV a little. So you should have your basic CV, but from there, you need to adjust it to every single position that you apply to. And that means maybe changing around some keywords, rephrasing your work, not lying, of course, never lie on a resume, but you might be able to rephrase it to where it matches a bit more the description that they have for that job. So I'd say definitely do that. And as well, me personally, but again, I'm not talking on behalf of a recruiter, so I don't know. But I like resumes that have a little bit of a design element. So not just this boring resume with a very, I don't know, traditional, typical layout. I like a little bit of design to it, just a little bit of color, nothing overdone, but just something that makes it look very nice and presentable and to stand out from a pile of very old school resumes. But again, that's my opinion. I prefer the nicer designed ones over the traditional.
Right, definitely. And since you're now working as a lead, you have been in the industry for a while now, and especially at Google. What do you think is any skill set, especially in your field, in terms of analytics and data science? What are the skills or one specific thing that someone can look into in terms of building their skill set?
You have, of course, the hard skills and the soft skills. And I won't talk about the hard skills because probably a lot of people already know the typical of programming. You definitely need to know SQL if you're going to work with data. You probably need to know Python, R, possibly cloud ecosystems. But those are the typical skills, and that varies by job. Which hard skills you need very much varies by job. But on the soft skills side, I think that doesn't always change so much. And for me, the most important thing is to work on your communication skills. There are a lot of people, particularly working in more technical roles, data science, a lot of people on this side who don't have the right communication skills, or they don't have enough. And it ends up closing doors for them later on. If you can develop your communication skills very well, even to the point that I mean that you can do public speaking, or at least just be comfortable talking in front of a group, even if it's just your team or your department, but giving presentations. This opens a lot of doors for you later on. It's going to also help you get noticed. Like I said earlier about making a voice for yourself. If you're communicating in front of a crowd of people, you're really making a voice for yourself. They're putting your face to the content. Now you're getting this visibility. So working as much as you can on communication, public speaking. And I know that for a lot of people, this is nerve-wracking. It happens to everyone. But I think the best way to get over it is just to do it. The first few times it's going to be, I know how it is because I was very nervous, especially at the start. The first few times it's horrible, but you have to get over those nerves. And as you practice more and as you put yourself on the spot and you push yourself out of your comfort zone, you will learn to manage those nerves. And even if you do like me, you will learn to channel these nerves into your energy. And now you can get up in front of a crowd and you're not nervous. You're actually more excited. You're energetic. And it really, again, for me, it's opened so many doors. So I would encourage everyone to focus on developing these skills.
Definitely, definitely. I completely agree with the part of communication skills. I have been an advocate about it my entire life as well. So one thing that I think I'm very curious about is that now that you're a lead in one of your industries, you're working as a lead in STEM, especially, and we always hear about this stereotype of it being difficult for women to get into leadership positions, especially in STEM. What do you think is true or untrue about this? Has it been really difficult, or there are people, or there are things that people don't talk about which are very positive about it?
I can focus on as a woman in STEM, particularly. I would say my experience as a woman in STEM. And unfortunately, I think there's still a lot of improvement. We're not there yet as women in STEM. We still have a long journey ahead. I see it's getting better, but it's going to take a while, unfortunately. And my own experience, I would say like the biggest challenge I have had is just not being taken serious at the beginning. So I will notice that, let's say if I'm walking into a classroom, so I teach classes, I also do public speaking, and I've had it many, many times. Most of the time it happens to me. I walk into a classroom or I walk into a room to give a speech, and I can either be mistaken as another student, and then they get shocked when they realize I'm the professor, or I'll just, come into a room saying hi, I start my class or my speech, and I will see the faces of people a little bit confused or just not taking me so serious at the start, even in meetings. And it's most times I think it's because, at least my impression is that I'm this younger woman working in tech, and many times I'm the only woman in this field. In many meetings, I'm the only woman. In my department at the university, I think I'm the only woman or one of very few in this department as a woman. So I just don't think when students are going to have a talk on machine learning, they don't expect me to be the one to appear there to give the talk, and I can see it on their face. And it's something that at the beginning it made me nervous. It didn't make me feel comfortable. But what I've learned is that it's like a challenge. You have to take it like a challenge. And it means that, especially for me, those first couple minutes in front of a crowd are the most important. I have to walk in with full confidence, with a smile on my face, and I need to start off very strong. And usually I'm pretty good about that now. And what I do is capture the audience. And they might not take me serious the first 2 minutes because they're judging the situation. But after about 2, 3 minutes, they're on my side. So it's very important capturing the audience at the beginning.
And so, what do you think is the way to, get noticed in tech and, become that person where you can get noticed? Because I think this whole thing starts off where people are not really giving women in STEM that much of importance or that much of, I, because you're less in number to start off with, maybe.
Yeah, I think a lot of this lies on us as women. I mean, you need to put yourself on the spot. So it might mean that you need to try a little bit harder, but it means going out there, being active. Depending on where you are in your career, whether you're more junior or more senior, but no matter where you are on that spectrum, you can find opportunities to have a voice. Maybe at the beginning it's just being active on LinkedIn, but later on maybe you could start participating in student organizations, participating at student events and that's actually where I started, participating with student events. And then from there, you go to more professional events. But this means volunteering yourself to participate on panels, to give workshops, but finding every opportunity you can. If you hear of especially it's the easiest place to start is the university. It's where I did. And that means getting involved with clubs, with events, and raising your hand to be the one, hey, can I host this panel? Can I be the one on stage with the speakers? And from there, you take up every opportunity you get yourself on the stage in front of people. And what's one of the really amazing things is that once you start to do things like this, hosting events, talking at events, more opportunities come your way. So every single time I speak at one or two events, I'll suddenly get contacted for 3 more because they saw me at that event. So make sure that you take every opportunity, that you don't say no for sure, because by saying no to something, you don't know what doors you're closing after that.
Definitely, definitely. So, to wrap this up in a nice packaging, what do you want to say about, life of a Googler, being at Google? How interesting does it get? Because, I've heard, I've never been to a Google office even to visit, but I've heard that there are these custom workspaces for people who like something, and if they have that in their indoor offices, they'll just put your workstation next to that, or they'll give you a lot of free food, or there's a huge pantry. So what are these fun things add to it?
There are lots of perks. There's definitely free food, and the food is really good. I miss it during COVID. We're working remote during COVID, obviously, so we don't have this free food, and I miss it. So you definitely have that. We have game rooms. I love the ping pong tables. I miss that as well. You have all of these perks, which is amazing, but it's important to know that the job, you still have work. I mean, you do have all this fun, and it's a great way to disconnect or to take a break, but we still take our job seriously. You still have to get your work done. But definitely at Google, you're given this freedom and this flexibility to do it in your own way. You know the work that you have to get done. You know what you need to get done today, tomorrow, this week. So you can kind of manage your own schedule. And if that means you take a 2-hour break to have a siesta and to play ping pong, then do it. As long as you're going to finish your work at the end of the week, then nobody's going to ask you. So it is interesting in that aspect that they give you a lot of autonomy and flexibility, but it also means that you need to be responsible. You can't get distracted by the food and the games.
But so this sounds interesting, because I've heard about it, and one of my friends went. So they're like, it's just this beautiful office, and there's so much to look at it. Obviously, Google is doing wonders. It's not like people are just playing, because otherwise the company would go down, and it's just growing upwards. So there's nothing about people not working there. But it's so interesting to see that people are getting, I think it's kind of adding to the motivation for everyone to work more and more there because of the kind of perks that are given there. Does that happen to you?
Yeah, I would say that Google takes care of its workers. And it's not just in the sense of perks, but as well in every other case, health insurance and things like that. You have all of these perks, so they make sure that you are very taken care of and you are comfortable so that you have the right environment to succeed in your work. And also as an employee, since I do have all of these benefits and perks, it motivates me that yes, I feel taken care of. So I feel this motivation even more so to work hard.
Definitely. That's something that I, think is more a part of that, excitement to be in that office rather than, just obviously having fun. But
Yeah.
that motivation that comes with, okay, this company, they are giving so much back, so I should definitely put my heart and soul into it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you didn't, you would feel bad. You would be taking all of this stuff and not giving back. So
Definitely. Definitely. So this was an amazing chat, Christina. It was so good to hear all these roller coaster journeys and so many tips from you. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking with us at FAANGPath.
thank you so much for having me on. And I hope it was helpful for all of the listeners.
I'm definitely sure that this was very, very helpful with all the small tips and tricks, how your journey has been, what they can learn from you, how they can get inspired. And definitely, I feel inspired. All the job seekers would definitely be inspired. Thank you so much for taking our time to speak with us,
Thank you.
Christina.
No, you're welcome. Thank you so much.